in, put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
And a very, very good evening, folks. Tuesday, 6th of February, 2024. Back for another episode, Tiger Town Podcast. I'm Zac. He's Toby. As always, introduced last week, brought to you by Best On Ground Digital, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guys. Like we said last week, we've done a fair bit of work with Best On Ground Digital. Awesome fellas. If you're looking for anything marketing-wise, there you'll go to. You'll find them at bestongrounddigital.com. Mate, Toby, there's the intro. How you going, champion?
Oh, mate, not too bad. You know, first show last week and got back in the groove of it. And yeah, I'm just keen to get this ball rolling. We've had quite a few positive comments about last week as well, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
Very, very happy that the fan base just keeps growing. You know, it's like kind of mind blowing to think that this started off as just a little pet project for you and I in terms of just getting our thoughts out there and seeing if people agreed or disagreed. And yeah, it's starting to get a bit of traction. So yeah, really excited.
Yeah, it's nice. And we've said countless times just how grateful we are to everybody for the support and the feedback. It's awesome. Some of the comments we had in the past week were really nice, and people stoked to have us back for some reason. So we're glad that you enjoy what we put out there, and we're going to keep doing it long into the sunset. So long may it continue. Mate, have you had a good week yourself?
50, 60 years old doing this.
Sorry, say that again.
We'll be 50, 60 years old doing this.
Yeah, not as far away as you might think, my friend.
Yeah, it sucks.
How's your week been, buddy?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad.
Yep.
Just work and family, you know. Back in the full swing after Christmas, so, you know, just got to get back into the daily duties. What about yourself?
Yeah, that sounds pretty stock standard. I think we're all in the same boat at the minute, aren't we? We're into the meat and potatoes of February, and what's on the horizon? Easter, maybe.
Yeah.
So, and a little bit away at this stage, so it's about knuckling down and doing a bit of work.
Yeah, pretty exciting. We my missus and I decided we're going to take the girls to the first Leichhardt game, their first Leichhardt game. So we'll be down there. I think June. We got the Titans on a Saturday afternoon. So we're going to take the girls down there for their first Leichhardt game, which is. If anyone knows me, they know that if my girls don't go for the Tigers, they sleep outside, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, that's being pretty generous, I think, personally. You know, don't set foot on the property would be more what I'd be sort of be leaning towards. But, you know, with mine only sitting there, I guess they're less, you know, one of them's nearly 3 and the other one's 6 months. Well, a little bit of time to sort of maybe, you know, point them in the right direction.
Brainwashing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you got to. I mean,
some
call it brainwashing. Some call it just imparting your passion upon your offspring. But
passion and wisdom, that's what we do here.
There was a bit of footy on the weekend.
There was. Yeah. Didn't watch it live. Watched the highlights actually just recently because I kind of, to be honest, didn't have time. So, you know, just before we kicked off the pod, had a bit of a look at the highlights, and it made me again, we've known how promising our juniors are coming through, and it just keeps rolling on.
Yeah, a few good little results there on the weekend. We might just run through it for those people that aren't up to speed. They are on the West Tigers website as well. But we mentioned last week that a few of the girls' pathways competitions, as well as the many junior boys' pathways, kicked off. I said trials last week. My mistake. They're actually into the round 1. So I'm just going to run through them super quickly. I might make mention probably of some of the SG ball incidents or, I guess, notes that we could take just very quickly, primarily because some of our we actually had a few players in our top 30 that were in the SG ball side. For those playing at home, that's under 19. So it is interesting. We'll talk about a couple of bits and pieces to do with that. But first and foremost, we had the under 17s girls. So the Lisa Fiaola Cup, I think is how you say it. Narrow win over the Sharkies, 20-18, which was a good first round outing for the young girls there. The Tasha Gale, though, or the Tasha Gale, sorry, which is the under-19. So it's the female SG ball equivalent. I think we're probably a little bit more familiar with the Tasha Gale name. Another narrow game, but they just went down to the Sharkies, 22-18. So in both of those games, and good to get 1 out of 2. I'm going to skip the SG ball for the minute because I'm going to circle back to that. Harold Matts. So Harold Matts is the boys' juniors under-17s. Balmain, obviously, in Harold Matts and SG Ball, the sides are split into Balmain and Wests still, and then they come back together for a Wests Tigers jersey flag side. Now, the other thing to mention as well is in the other competitions that were in the 16s and the 18s, the Andrew Johns and Laurie Daly Cups, they are known as the MacArthur Wests Tigers, and it is one conglomerate of which junior clubs feed into, is my understanding. But anybody out there, if you've got a bit more knowledge, I know some of the boys on the other podcasts really knee deep into some of this stuff, let us know. Anyway, I'm blabbering on enough. The Harold Matts Balmain side copped a bit of a flogging first up, so 32-6. Balmain went down to the Sharkies. That's a familiar scoreline for old Balmain diehards. Happened a fair bit on our watch. Where are we? So Andrew Johns, which is the under-16s competition. We sort of run parallel, but different teams set up. MacArthur West Tigers got a win over the Western Rams, which was 24-20. And in that game, they actually scored... Was it that game? They scored 3 tries in the final 6 minutes to win. So you might say they maybe got away with it, or they clicked into gear very, very late in the game. But you'll take that one for a good first outing. And in the under-18s, which is a Laurie Daly Cup, mate, MacArthur West Tigers once again got another narrow win over the same side, the Western Rams, 26-22. So, not bad all told there. Now, if I circle back to SG Ball, obviously it's, we've got a few players in those sides. Not so much in the Balmain side. So I'll mention the Balmain side. They copped a bit of a touch-up from the Sharkies once more, 44-18. Now, there are a couple of young players that are on the radar, I think, of our junior squads in that side, but no real standout names that you may have heard at this stage yet. But if we're thinking about a name or two to keep an eye on for future reference, Cameron Kanan, who played fullback, good little player. Mark Tannis played halfback, good little player as well. And then another one that I've got my eye on, other than the captain, Kyan Edmed, which was the Edmed from the 90s, who played for Balmain. Young fella was, where are we? Forget it. The other name that I missed was a Harold Matts side, Harold Matts player. So the only other game that we need to mention, and I've left it till last because I just wanted to have a brief chat about it, was the Magpies SG Ball under-19 side got a win 42-18 over the Seagulls. Now, the West Magpies under-18s SG Ball side is an interesting one because that is probably the side that we tend to stack most of our promising juniors in. I don't know the rationale behind that, whether it's locale or whatnot. Maybe it's an organic feeder where those players are out that way anyway. I'm not sure. But it's particularly interesting, that Magpies SG Ball side, because there's several players in there that, if not development deals, top 30, or at the very least are names that you'll probably hear a lot of. And if I go through the back line there that started last week, Heath Mason, so he played. He trained with the top 30 side over the summer. My understanding, he's a development deal next year. I'd have to double check. William Craig, you'll hear a bit more out of him. He played on the wing, can play wing centre, good up-and-coming young player. Nav Willett, so we've spoken about Nav Willett a little bit, coming down from Taree. Young fellow was in the Swans Academy briefly and spurned them to come and sign with the Tigers. He scored a double, quite handy, as did, I will say, Heath Mason at fullback, the other player that did the top 30 summer training. So Nav Willett in centre, he trained with the top 30 as well. Luke Laulalii, a strong, powerful winger in the Brian Toto mould. He played at centre. Didn't see a whole lot from him in the game. Obviously didn't watch the game, but didn't hear how he went. So anybody who was down there, let us know. He's the younger brother of Kit. Another name that you might want to keep an eye on, Jordan Miller. We know he's in our top 30 this year. Big up-and-coming prop. lot of good raps on him. And then obviously Talon Da Silva, who's played a handful of first grade games now. We're all pretty familiar or are becoming familiar with Talon and what he has to offer. To be perfectly frank, he walked it in. So
Yeah,
you watch the
he toyed
highlights.
with it.
Yeah, you watched the highlights earlier, mate. What did you make of Talon's input just in the small little snippets that you saw?
It's just like if anyone wants to watch the highlights, they're on the New South Wales Cup website or New South Wales Rugby League website. But yeah, basically he's playing well below his grade, is what it looked like. He looked like a man playing with boys. He's put on a bit of size in the off season. It looks like he's a bit more stockier.
That was noticeable, wasn't it?
Oh, very much so. Yeah,
It didn't even look like him from a distance.
No, it looked like he hit puberty. If I'm being honest, but he had a support play in there. Looked like he was doing it at half pace when he was running through the middle. Also had a few scoots, but he also had a little barging run from dummy half to score as well. And it looked like a barging centre going over their opposing number. That's what it looked like, but it was just talent. So
yeah, exactly right, mate. And it's not surprising that he's not named this week. I think that was just a bit of a blow out the cobwebs game for him. He hasn't obviously played since the back end of last year, and it was plain as the nose on your face to see how well and truly above SG Ball he is in a single game. Fun fact, courtesy of Nothing But West Tigers on Twitter, who is a fantastic Twitter account. If you haven't heard of him, he or she, sorry, I'm not going to make assumptions. Brilliant. Covers all the far corners of the Tigers club.
Yep.
Particularly juniors very well. He made a note and shared a stat that was interesting on Talon. He played 9 SG Ball games last year. Obviously, they have a pretty short season of 9 games. Has scored a try in every single one of them, then started this year with a double in his first. So he scored 10 tries in 9 SG Ball games, and he's a hooker. I think he even had a hand in another couple as well. So it was good to see doubles from those players that were in the top 30 side, and you could tell that, they kind of walked it in a little bit there. So, it's a pleasing start for what is probably our premier junior pathway side, I would imagine, mate.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm very keen to see a little bit more, and I mentioned him last week in Nate Willett. I'm very keen to see a bit more of him, so I think I'll be watching a fair bit of SG Ball this year. Obviously, I kind of need to now that we have all of these amazing listeners that hang on every sentence that I speak. But definitely want to watch a bit more of him. Be interesting to see if he gets a little bit more of under 20s or if he even moves up to a little bit of New South Wales Cup action, which would be very interesting. So
it'd be really interesting, I agree, to see what they do with our strongest ball players. I've got no doubt that the strongest guys will play flag at least. Talon, obviously, at some point in the year, is probably going to play an NRL again. He's probably going to play a decent handful of games between him and Simpkin there to sort of fill in when Appy's not available for various points throughout the year. Hopefully not too much. But the likes of Miller, you would expect to see play a bit of flag, and probably many of those other names as well. And look, the jump between SG Ball and flag is obviously a step, and then obviously to New South Wales Cup, you're playing against somewhat hardened veteran men to a degree. So those are step ups in level. So it will be interesting to see how they kick on as well. But it's important to remember under 19s, a lot of these kids are fresh out of school and 18 years of age. As much as they're starting to begin to look like men, it's very easy to put the cart before the horse and think that they're here yet, when realistically some of these names we're mentioning, with the exception of, the likes of Talon and whatnot, they're probably more 20, 25, 26, 27 propositions. But as you said, it's exciting to see them coming through.
Yeah, especially those forwards. Like we know that, the forwards don't really develop into the hardened shell that they are until mid-20s, late 20s even. And so a lot of these kids are still growing. They're still filling out. They're still, they're still also learning the craft, and they're still improving aspects of their game that they don't, that obviously don't come natural to them. And perfect example is, I said to you when I was watching the highlights that, Jordan Miller had a couple of poor misses in the middle, but that's just fatigue. That's all that is just fatigue. Things that he's just got to keep building on and keep working. And that's what the next 3-4 years are all about, is these players getting a bit more game time, a bit more, professionalism behind them. So,
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the more they're exposed to in a variety of different settings and circumstances, whether it's training over the summer in the main squad, whether it's playing those different divisions that we spoke about, each taste that they get will only improve them in the long term, I think.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Like the schedule tonight that we were talking about and addressing everybody as well, obviously, is we thought we'd throw in a slightly too early, not predicted team, but the type of team that we would trot out given the current squad. And in as we go and as we explain each of our sides, and we'll give each person the mic, as it were, to sort of to walk through that, maybe ask a few questions as we go. We might explore some of the depth options that we have as we go as well, and that will give us a chance to sort of maybe blow that wide open, whatnot as well. Now we know that some of these are going to be contentious, but that's sort of the point tonight. I think is we're going to, I guess, explain our rationale behind types of selections that we wouldn't mind seeing. A couple of them, I dare say, mate, I don't want to speak for you, but a couple of them might be not unrealistic, but probably unlikely to be the likely selection come round two, which is our first game, obviously. And but if you've got anything that you disagree with, if you've got your own side selection, I want to specifically ask this week, if you get the chance, Facebook or on the YouTube, even on the YouTube comments page, throw your team in, because there's so many combinations that we can play around with, and I feel like I'm missing a piece or two there, and so I'd love to hear from all you guys listening. If you get the chance, throw your 1 to 17 in and explain away and tell us a little bit what you're thinking. Not so much where you think Benji's going to go, but maybe what you'd like to see and the reasons why.
Yeah, because we can all sit there and we can predict pretty comfortably where Benji will go. Like, there's obviously a couple of unknowns that we're not 100% sure of, but we're 80% certain of what he'd pick. It's more, what will you want to see out there? What would you personally like to field? If you were Benji's shoes and you thought this is the direction that we need to go, just chuck your comment in there and just let us know.
Yeah, Facebook, you'll have the chance to do it on there, or even better on YouTube as well, because we can interact on either one, and we get a few conversations going in, as well. Because to be perfectly honest, this time of year is really exciting, mate, for me. Like to have a look at the options that you got, and we've got a bit of a quite a few, I should say, personnel changes. So it's one of those situations where we can be, we can sort of get in the laboratory a bit and then play around with some.
It's not to be understated too. This is our last pod before we can actually talk about a game, because it's the first preseason challenge game next week. So, we got to tick this one off first.
Absolutely. And hopefully this time next week we might have an idea of what the squad looks like for the first trial, although we'll have to wait and see, I guess, who is left out from it. But we'll explore that a little bit more next week, maybe.
Fingers crossed they release it before we record the next pod, because they do tend to release the preseason challenge teams a bit later than we would like. So
that is true. We'll have to wait and see. My friend, I'm gonna throw the platform to you, and what I think we might do, we'll work through. You rip through your 1 to 17 straight up, and then we might maybe explore a couple of the reasons why, and then we might look at the depth of the backs from your side and what backs look like. I'll then jump into mine maybe, and we might look at the depth in our forwards off the back of mine, mate. So over to you.
I was thinking that we look at the 1 to 17, but when we go through the 1 to 17, we also name their backup. So if they go down, who would we put in there as a replacement? Because that would look at the depth as well. So, So I think we all know who's going to be there at fullback, or who we want to be there at fullback, and that is Buller. Outstanding debut season last year. We were talking about this last year. I think you mentioned Buller, and maybe Sheensy had mentioned Buller as a smoky.
Sheens definitely had, and my comments were off the back of that.
Yeah. So, it wasn't on anyone's real radar, bar the people on the inside. Hadn't heard anything. I personally hadn't heard anything about Buller, so I'd
actually watched him in New South Wales Cup in 22, and didn't. He looked good, but I didn't expect him to explode the way he did. It didn't. He didn't have the look of a person that was owning New South Wales Cup in 22.
Yeah. I think he played in the first trial too against the Warriors. I think he came on in the second half. Didn't set the world on fire for me. But the bloke just went from strength to strength, and I think he can go even better under Benji's tutelage. I think that It's funny. I was listening to a podcast. It was an old podcast actually. It was from I think it was the back end of last year or the start of this year, and Appy was on it. I think it was with Isaac John, the old Penrith player. He hosts the podcast.
The Marty Luke Brooks.
The what?
He looks like the Marty Luke Brooks, the Mary Luke Brooks.
Okay, I'll go with you on
I
that.
guarantee it. Anybody who's seen Isaac John on his podcast, you put him side by side, he looks like the Kiwi version of Luke Brooks. It's hilarious.
All right,
Anyway.
I'm gonna have to look at that through a different lens now. But
I mean, you're
But, yeah,
explaining Buller's being picked at fullback. He's probably the
yeah,
second
I've got a little bit of tangent at the same time, but I'll come back to it. It's fine. I'll do the roundabout. But Appy
right,
said
we'll be at on midnight at this pace, but yeah, no,
yeah, it's cool. He said that Benji's obviously different in how he approaches coaching than Sheens was. Sheens was very much let's try to let's try to pass the ball, let's defend, let's do that. I want to be the strategist or this and that. Where Benji obviously has taken on board the way that Wayne Bennett coaches. He's very much a people person and tries to get the best out of his player. I think he's going to do that very, very well for Buller. And then obviously we talked about the Greg Inglis mentorship that has come on board, and I think that can only help him as well. So Buller as obviously primary, as secondary if he goes down, is my next choice for the wing is Staines, obviously.
Yep.
So Staines is my first winger for I've spoken ad nauseum about him last year, how I was just super impressed with how he performed, how he dug in, how he ran, read defenses quite well for a winger. Wingers, we can just talk about Noffa's reads all day long, but Noffa's not the only winger that does that. Wingers do tend to not be fantastic defenders. They tend to be like good defenders, but Staines' reads were really, really, really good. And he was a very serviceable backup at fullback. So he's my first winger. And if he goes down, I've got Naden as my backup. So Naden's not starting for me, and I'll tell you why in a sec. I'll go to my other winger, so I'll finish off the wingers. It's actually Alex Lobb. So I've got Alex Lobb starting, and I've got him starting for two reasons. One, his height. I think that is something that we desperately need. We've got Staines isn't short by any means, but he's not tall. Alex Lobb, I think, is 194 centimetres, something like that. So he's tall. 6'4", 6'3". Huh?
6'5".
6'5", so he's tall.
Tall, dude. Yep.
But it's also his goal kicking. His goal kicking efficiencies, I think, is at like 89%. Quote me, I could be pulling that number out of my ass, but I'm pretty certain it's quite good. And I think that is something that has let us down a lot in the past, is having a very serviceable goal kicker. We thought we had it with Dewey a couple of years ago, but then even his were, touch and go sometimes. And then, Appy picked up a couple there. Brooks even did it a bit. So that's why I've got Lobb there.
Okay.
And my backup for that is actually Tupou. So,
yep. So reasons for not picking Tupou in your side? Just the fact he's signed elsewhere?
Yeah, he's signed elsewhere. I think that, he's done good for us. Don't get me wrong. I wish he stayed, and, I was a bit disappointed when he signed somewhere else. But, it's about looking to the future now. It's about, if he's the best person for the job at the time and he's actually playing really good football and he's going to win us games, sure, why not? Yeah. But, Lobb's there on a development contract, which means that, he can... shit. He can't actually play round one. Oh, okay, well, we're not playing that.
Yes, he can.
Oh, it's the New South Wales Cup. Yeah, okay.
Train and trialist can't play until round 8. No, round 10. It was round 8. The development guys can play from round 1.
Yeah, okay. So Tupou, Lobb over Tupou for those reasons. I think that, and I think also we probably both see Tupou as more of a centre too. I think Lobb is more of a specialist winger as well. So,
okay. Yep.
For my centres, I think the first one's pretty obvious. Is Olam. We signed him for a reason. He's a defensive centre he's a powerhouse centre that can be quite devastating in defence, but more so in attack. He runs very much like like a Semi Radradra or a Taniela Tuaki. Doesn't look for the gaps or the steps. He just runs over the top of you. So I think that's definitely something that we're missing. And also the fact that even Benji himself, whether he was talking him up or not, said he is the loudest centre he's ever played against. And like you said it last week, centre is such a pivotal position in terms of defence. You need to be quite loud and you need to make the right choices the majority of the time, because if you don't, it affects your inside, it affects your outside, and it can even affect your fullback pretty significantly. So,
yep.
If he's not in there, I've probably got Naden filling in for both either Staines or Olam, because we both know that Naden's pretty good at both. But if I had to go, if Naden's already taken as a backup, I'm thinking probably more Felitti. But that's only because let's say, for instance, my whole team goes down at the exact same time and I have to fill that again. It's probably Felitti because lack of options again there. Because my other centre is Todd. I liked more of what I saw from him last year than I disliked, and that's probably by a significant margin. I think he did a lot of very, very good things in attack. He did a lot of serviceable things in defence. I still think that's probably a part where he can improve. But yeah, I think he's done more than enough to show me that he deserves the first crack at that centre position. So
cool, mate. I might jump in and do my backs maybe while we're talking backs.
Yeah.
It's hard to disagree with what you said. I've got Buller, Staines, Olam, Toa, and Tupou. So very, very similar. Staines is my backup fullback for Buller for obvious reasons. He's played bits and pieces of it, particularly in the juniors. He's very quick. His positional play is very good. Doesn't have much of a passing game, but I would much rather have a safe, high percentage defensive style fullback, I guess, at the back, someone that's in position, more so than somebody who's a bit more of a threat. So in some ways, he's sort of the anti-Dewey when Dewey was playing there. Dewey's positional play and speed across the ground was awful, but he was a bit more of a threat with ball in hand. I see Staines as the opposite to that. You've spoken everything about Buller. We all know what Buller's got to offer. We know what his next step looks like, and hopefully he can take it. Olam is a walk-up start. We know that. I've picked Toa in the centres. Not dissimilar to you. I actually think he's trending upwards. I didn't actually... There was very few games I was disappointed in Toa. I can think of maybe one game, and I can't even remember the specifics of it, but there was one game that I was cursing him out a little bit, which was frustrating. Outside of that, I think he just goes about his business. And then occasionally he has those fire games like he had against the Cowboys when he completely scorched Valentine Holmes all night. I think that as he gets a bit more mature, I would like to see that happen a little bit more, obviously. I think that he's shown that he's got a bit more of it to come, and I think that comes with maturity. But like I said, even Toa's bad games, I think he actually gets overlooked a lot in that he doesn't get noticed, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, in my opinion, defensively. I think he has done a pretty reasonable job there for the most part. I know that he had his defensive issues earlier in his career, perhaps 22, or even maybe at the start of last year. A couple of little mishaps, but yeah, I got Toa in there. And then Tupou is my other wing. I think he's the next best winger available at the moment, as much as he's going to the Dolphins. I don't think there's anybody else that can usurp him at the moment for me. My backup wingers are Naden, Lobb, and Alomalo, of which I would almost be tempted to pick Alomalo first, provided his first few games are fine. And the reason I would pick Alomalo first is he has tasted the top level in Super Rugby. And in terms of being overawed, you can make the comparisons to when Jared Hayne went and played NFL for the Niners. A lot of the comments around the time was that he wasn't overawed by the situation because he'd played in rugby league on similar levels in terms of hype and crowds and audience and spotlight and cameras and all that sort of jazz. So I don't expect somebody like Alamalo to come in, provided he hits the ground running. I don't expect that to phase him too much. So he would be a pick for me there. Probably in both centre and wing. He'd probably be my first pick replacement. Although Naden would be a close second as well. So they're probably touch and go, those two for me. The only other name he didn't mention is Solomon Fa'atape that we spoke about from East Tigers. Similar, I see, to Falidi in terms of defensive deficiencies from what we've heard so far, where the work needs to be done. But Fa'atape's got the plus side of being a couple of years older, still only 23, but he's been destroying sides in the Queensland Cup with the ball. So in terms of attack, he's got it all there. So those are my backups, and yeah, I think that's a pretty straightforward side. Obviously, there's a few combinations there at centre. You could pick a winger or two, change, but that's where I'm at. So not overly.
It's all pretty self-explanatory. I don't think any questions really need to be asked about why you picked what you did. So
yep,
yeah.
All right. Well, I might dive in then, if you don't mind, and I'll run through the second half of my starting side. And I've made a recent change, and it's a bit tinfoil, but we'll go with it. I might just run through the second half, and then I'll run into my bench because the two are connected, and then I'll kick off from there. So I've got Sullivan and Caesar. I don't think that's overly surprising. I think Fainu and Galvin are nipping at their heels, but they are two 18-year-old former schoolboy debutantes. Neither has played first grade, unless you count Latu's game for Tonga off the bench. So I think they're not far away. And to be perfectly honest, I think Latu could play from round two, but I just think the slightly older, more experienced guys, in Caesar's case, extremely older, will be given first shot, and rightly they should. I've actually made a change and put a little bit of fire in my starting pack. So I've actually picked Pole and Tokamanu as my opening props. And there's a reason why. I'll explain in a sec. Appy is my hooker, Bateman and Papali my second rowers, and I've picked Kit to be given the opportunity to own the lock middle jersey. He's got a decent pass on him. He's been training there with a few others over the off-season. I see lock as an area that doesn't have an obvious solution to it. So I've picked Kit Leali'i to have first crack. And off the back of Pole and Leali'i starting in that pack, I've now got Twal and Clemmer as my props on the bench, alongside Sam Fainu and Kapoa. Now, let me explain three things. I've moved Clemmer to the bench because if I've picked that young pack, I would actually want the likes of Clemmer and Twal to come on, and every week one of them come on at the 20-minute mark and actually play out the game, because I see them as very similar style players, and then you interchange the other one. And what that would actually do as well, as much as Pole and Tokamanu have experience now, you've got Papali'i and Bateman on the edges who are very experienced, but it's a relatively somewhat inexperienced middle, almost neglectfully so, but that stuff doesn't worry me too much, provided they're not getting steamrolled. But having then the likes of Clemmer and Twal to come on at any point in time to provide experience in that middle is really valuable. And I actually think you're going to get a bit more out of Clem, as much as we've spoken about how we're really pleased with him. Play him in a slightly different way, and you can get a little bit more out of him off the bench, possibly. It's not my favourite idea, but it's me trying to find a lock. And if I'm going to play Kit at lock, I need experience on the bench to come on. The second, 2 of 3, I want to explain is Sam Fainu. I picked him because he's a bit of a prodigy, big raps on him, but his versatility primarily. I could have picked Seyfarth in there, very likely he's probably in the 18 or 19, Seyfarth. Good quality, high energy player. Obviously low ceiling compared to some others in our opinion, but Fainu can play on an edge or prop at middle, so there's versatility. The final one is Kapoa. And the reason I've picked Kapoa is, I know a lot of people aren't fans of Kapoa, and I'm not always the biggest fan of Kapoa, but AJ Kapoa has the potential to play on the second row, on the wing, at centre. If you want a utility, he's your utility. The only place he couldn't play in the halves, but you can shuffle other things around. So in my eyes, the versatility of Samuela Fainu and Kapoa gets them on the bench. But me being me, mate, I might switch that in 5 minutes and start all over again. We'll see how we go.
Well, what I will say is you mentioned a couple of things there that made me just switch mine. So,
right, I noticed you fiddling with your keyboard. So let me know, what are you thinking?
So my starting isn't the same as your starting, except for my lock. So originally I had Matamura at lock, but I will be completely honest and upfront here. I actually forgot about Paulet. I'm very hurt that I forgot about him because I love him, but I did actually forget about him. But so my starting pack is obviously the halves are Bud and Caesar, same as you. Same reasons as well, actually, exact same reasons. We've got Galvin, we've got Fainu, who have actually never tasted NRL yet, 18 years old. They've still got plenty of years ahead of them. Let them play against men for a while and let them develop that.
And their time will come.
Their time will come. My fronties are Steph and Clem because I think Clem, he adds that aggression already off the bench, which is really what I am hoping for.
Off the bench.
Sorry, as a starter, he already adds that to the pack. It was, the thing that I always think about from a podcast. Jesus, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. From a starting forward position is if you remember, I think it was 2013 State of Origin, Tim Grant running directly at the Queensland pack. That's the kind of thing I want from the start, and I think Clem does that. And he also has got a cool head on his shoulders. We saw it last year. He's really learnt to channel that aggression. So he's got my start. Back row is actually, like I said, the exact same as yours. Pappy, Bateman, and Kit. I think, Kit's actually very much a decent lock. He did all right there when he started, and everything that I've been heard, he was on my bench originally. Kit was as kind of that powerhouse middle to come through. But
I need to just make a comment based upon that selection that I made. Is that I wouldn't be playing Kit as, I should have said this earlier, I wouldn't be playing Kit as an 80-minute lock. I'd be playing him as the starting lock who then can rotate through. So I might even move, say, Pole back into the lock position. I might move Twal into the lock position. And I mentioned before the likes of Clemmer and Twal, I think, could come on at 20 minutes and play out the game. The ability then to give Lalaletti, because he will not have the lungs, he doesn't have the aerobic capacity to be able to get through that amount of workload at the age of 19. You then push your traditional Pole Twal, who have played lock, but basically they're a third prop. You push them into that role to fill that space. Yeah. Lalaletti can come on maybe for a small 12-minute stint at the back end to play that impact middle that you were talking about. That hasn't been lost on me. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And that's definitely kind of where my head's at, but more so the person that I think, for me, that can tie that up really well is actually Twal. He's the one that would actually come on and tie up everything quite well. But that's not my bench. He's not there for my bench. He's there as a fronty. My bench as a utility is actually Matamua. I think Matamua was actually not a decent... we know he can play lock. We know he can second row. He deputised in hooker when Appy went off a couple of games. He can jump in the back row, push Bateman into the centres. I think he's a good utility to have. I've got Twal, obviously. I've got Sam, and I've got Pole. So, not too much difference in terms of you and I, but obviously things have just been tweaked in terms of who's starting, who's benching. So,
yeah, look, it's good to see we're on similar pages. What I wanted to run the eye over, and this is entirely hypothetical, obviously, and as speculation is by nature of speculation, but, mate, let's just go through a couple of scenarios, say, with those sides that are very, very similar. And let's say a half goes down. Okay, so a Sullivan or a Caesar. What are you shuffling around with the squad that you've produced there to try to cover for
that? So let's say it is like Bud or... So for me, it's... You know what? I think that either Bud or Caesar can play a dominant half role. I don't want to push Appy into there again. I think Appy's needs to be a hooker, needs to create that. You need someone just to be serviceable. So for me, it's Bateman pushed into the halves as just that middle linchpin.
It's like a link man. A link man. Yeah, okay.
And then you can push, Matamua, Kit to the back row. That's pretty serviceable in my eyes.
Yep. That's not a bad option at all. I don't disagree. I think that basically if that happens, then some of the playmaking gets shifted from the two halves back into Appy a bit more, sort of like he played this year. He played as a playmaker from hooker, and he will continue to a degree, but I think he wants to downgrade the reliance on that. So Appy, if a half goes down in my side, Appy kicks a bit more. And then I have a Toa, probably push into 5'8". Toa's played 5'8", and he grew up playing fullback. So he's enough of a ball runner to be able to do that, and he can dish out a pass if he has to. And then I've got to cover centre, and we've got options, like we said. I'd probably push Kapoa in my side out to centre. I mean, obviously, this isn't first choice, right? This is a scenario.
This is a scenario, yeah.
Correct. So that would save me shuffling the back row with, like you said, Bateman being an option, obviously, as well. Obviously, starting as a centre when he first started playing over in England for Bradford. So, that's halves covered, I guess. Obviously, we're both thinking that Appy's an 80-minute this year. I don't think carrying the likes of Simpkin or TDS on the bench this year is something that provides as much value maybe as other options. If Appy goes down, mate, what are you thinking?
For the side that we have now?
Just for hooker cover. So you're 1 to 17. How are you covering your hooker if Appy goes down?
It's got to be Matamua. That's the reason I put him there.
Perfect. So easy. You've got a ready-made replacement. That's perfect. See, I don't. And so in that type of situation, I would actually do something really similar. I'd probably push Sullivan in, and then I would pull Toa into running 5'8", and then I'd put Kapoa in the centres.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea either.
Yeah, so that way we don't actually lose a whole lot, in my opinion, as opposed to me trying to push a non-hooker forward in there. And I don't really have that pseudo hooker lock replacement like you do in Matamua. So that's probably the way I'd go about it. Yeah,
that's not a bad idea if you're being honest.
I don't think we need to really discuss if a prop goes down. I think both of us have got enough prop or prop options to cover. Yeah. I guess the only other option then maybe if we look at, say, a senator goes down, so say Olamotoa, you've discussed Bateman.
Yeah, Bateman pushed into the centres for me. It wouldn't be... So obviously we're saying just one centre goes down, but if we go, play devil's advocate and we lose a centre and a winger, which does happen quite a bit, people have to cover that. Obviously, a little bit of shifting needs to happen there. To be honest, I would probably have my halves defending as far wide as I could, but attacking in the middle, just for the speed factor. So you'd have like a little bit of your second rowers that can have a bit of speed to the back of them. Your Matamuas, your Poles, push a little bit further wide, but your halves will be defending where the speed matters. So,
okay, yeah, sounds good. I think that's probably just covering those sort of scenarios as well. And like we said, very, very hypothetical, but it's just interesting. I think it's if you are going to sit there, and many people love to do this sort of stuff, they like to create their 1 to 17 prior, and it's good fun. And it's a good little exercise in actually playing through a few scenarios and thinking, what are my selections like if I were a coach, and why have I put certain players in certain positions, and what happens in this scenario? And I just think as a football fan, and as people, as you and I are, mate, and as our listeners are who love the game enough to consume excess media on it and do these types of lists, I think it's just a really good way to cover all your bases and get you thinking maybe from different perspectives and thinking from the game a little bit inside out rather than just watching and absorbing like some people do.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's also it's like you said, it's a bit of fun. It's instead of just being run of the mill. This is who they'll most likely pick. Predicted teams. It's like, well, who would you want to be there and why? And that's why I think I enjoy doing stuff like this. So,
yeah, no, definitely. While we're talking about options, I guess if we just really quickly let's go by position and just throw what the options are realistically for this year, maybe or just for round 2, just for the listeners as well. Hop on the West Tigers site, have a look at the squads. There might be a few names, if you're not familiar with some of the up-and-comers, that we might be able to provide you with. I won't talk about too many that are going to be playing a lot of cup, but there are a few names there for me to pick from if you're looking at, hopping on one of our socials and throwing you 1 to 17 in, which we'd love to see you do. Obviously, fullback, it's Buller and Staines, essentially, mate. Anybody else you could see at a pinch playing there? Possibly Toa.
Yep. I think Lob might have played there a couple of times in New South Wales Cup as well.
Probably those couple, though, eh?
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head. But while you're talking about that, we'll talk about. I'll bring up the New South Wales team if it's been named. So New South Wales Cup team, because we're thinking about round 10 onwards, there's people in there that could potentially fill in as well if they're training trial. So,
Oh yeah, but like we said, round 2 is around the corner, and I guess focusing on where we're sort of starting in the year can't hurt us either. A name that neither of us have mentioned, obviously, because we were talking about round 2, and there's a lot up in the air with him, is an Adam Dewey type.
yeah,
Just on a bit of a tangent, mate. So say he gets back and he's playing some okay footy. Where do you see him finding a spot in the 17? And because let's not forget, Adam Dewey at his best is a gun.
absolutely. But
At his
unfortunately,
best,
I think we've signed quite well to fill any gaps that he could potentially, fill.
yeah, no doubt.
Let's say, for instance, he demands selection. He's playing that good. He demands selection. With his knees and with, I guess, everything that's happened to him, poor bloke, but I can't see him playing in the back anymore. I would potentially put him at lock as a ball playing lock. He can defend. He's all right at defending. He doesn't have to make those decisions that a half tends to out wide. Can just put his shoulder in and have a nice hit. So that's where I put him if he demands selection.
Yeah. Which, if he comes back and he's, at least 80-85% of the player that he was, which, multiple ACLs never good, but he's every chance of doing that. He would walk through a New South Wales Cup. We know he's NRL quality through and through. So if he does get back on the paddock and he is playing decently well, he will be in the contention somewhere. For me, he's a 14. To me, he's a really good option at 14. We're not sacrificing Simpkin game time. Not that his development is really, in our future as much. We're not pushing talent back too much by doing that. It just gives us, a lot of versatility around that. My only concern with playing Dewey in the forwards, and I don't disagree that lock or second row is possibly his position, if he is able to continue playing first grade football, is that his major issue has always been his defence. And granted, playing 5'8", or even at fullback, it's been, if not broken play defence, which is it's a weird dynamic as it is, but edge defence. And is it him being a victim of the people inside and outside him and second guessing or having doubts, or is it just the fact that he's got the shoulders of a snake and never really was forced coming through to use his shoulder in his defensive tackling style? I don't know. Does he have the defence to play in the middle? I tell you what, it would have to be a pretty big focus for him. And if he's looking to play lock, say we throw him on a reduced 12-month contract for 2025, I'm happy to explore that. But I need 5-10 kilos on him, and I need him to start to learn how to use those shoulders because I'm not risking him on an edge. In the middle, he can hide a bit better, but I just front on. We haven't seen his front on defence. It's been that long since he's played, and probably that long since we've seen examples of it.
Yeah, see, I never thought he was a horrible defender.
I did.
I thought people inside him or outside him were worse, and he had to make decisions. His decisions were poor. I don't remember his efficiency being that bad, but I have to look at the stats of that. But you're still 100% right. He needs to add some kilos on his frame if he wants to go into that. And you know what? Personally, I'd like to see him get back. I'd like to see him get back on the paddock and play good footy. But he has to realise that his days in the halves and the backs are gone. His knees can't do it. He doesn't he doesn't have the speed anymore to get on the outside of people like he used to. Don't put your knees in those positions anymore. He's got to look after himself as well. And to be honest, it's not hard to just protect yourself in those sort of areas when you're in the middle.
Correct. And often in the middle, where a player's running at you, straight on.
Yeah,
so you normally got a bit more time to set your body. You got a bit more time to position your legs out of the way and lean into the tackle with your shoulder. So, yeah, I agree with you all on that, mate. But we did go a little bit off the deep end there.
That's right.
That was my fault.
Usually
yeah, usually. Always is.
Yeah, always.
So I did want to. I know we're talking about something else, but I did want to just run through. I don't actually have times. I should have times. I don't have times. But if you were sitting there listening to some of the junior results from earlier, wondering or wishing where you could watch this stuff, New South Wales Rugby League do have a new app apparently. I'm not plugging this because I'm not a big fan of the fact it's paid. It is a small paid subscription, I should say, is my understanding. But that can be something you can follow up and have a bit of a look at. Obviously, if you're local down in the area, head out to the games. That's the best way to wrap your heads around some of these kids we've got coming through and some of the systems that we're trying to work. Otherwise, keep on the New South Wales Rugby League Facebook page because they do post updates. They post clips, they post highlight videos and stuff like that as well. And I'm not sure whether they have fully transitioned over to this new app or they are still doing some live streaming through New South Wales Rugby League.tv. So that's something worth investigating if you want to have a look. There are a few games last weekend, if it's anything to go by, some games Saturday, some games Sunday. I'm sorry, I should have a bit more detail, but I'm sure that you can find those details on the New South Wales Rugby League webpage if you're interested. SG Ball, the West side in particular, if you get the opportunity, that's the game to watch.
Yeah, 100%. But you were talking about depths of the team. That was a tangent and a half.
That's what we were talking about. I knew we were there.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest tangents you've ever been on.
Excuse me. Look, mate, it takes two to tango, and
I don't go on tangents. I'm always on point.
Two-man canoe, mate. We sailed off together. You're paddling just as hard as me. We weren't going very far.
Yeah, but there was a leak in the dinghy. It's fine.
Again, your fault, mate. All right. So we discussed our fullback options, our wing options. We're moving to. We've got Staines, Tupou, Lob, Ale Marlow, Naden at a pinch, Tower at a pinch, Kapoa, hopefully, hell not.
No, not again.
Not reflective of him as an individual, but just him on a wing, definitely.
Well, there was the whole reason was they made him put on size to play in the back row, and they chucked him on the wing. He lost speed. Of course he did if he puts on size.
That's another Sheenia special, mate, that one.
Yeah.
Centres. You and I both have Olam and Toa. Obviously, Olam is far and away the best centre in the club. He's a walk-up start. We know what he brings. Very lucky to have him in that sense, as in it's not much of a selection dilemma there. We've got Atape, we spoke about, come down from East Tigers in Brisbane. Ale Marlow come over from formerly Chiefs and Highlanders over there as a rugby convert. Very exciting. I'm particularly excited about Ale Marlow personally. We've got Solomon Sakuru as well, who was a young junior that came through development deal last year, is my understanding. Solid big fella, still quite young. I think he's only 20, Solomon. We've got Josh Folletti. Big raps on Folletti as well. We saw him make his debut last year. Again, a lot of these up-and-coming guys are relatively young. I think we've got the youngest, if not one of the youngest squads in the NRL, and we're starting to see a bit of an example of that as well. We've got Kapoa, who can play in the centres as well, and then maybe a Dewey or something, possibly, although we're both...
And Tupou can play in the centres in a pinch.
Tupou can, yes, as well. And obviously, as I said with Dewey, we've reiterated that, one, it's late in the year. Two, we're not fans of him out wide there, so... There are probably options in centre, and I would put it to you, mate, that even though centre has traditionally, for the longest time, been one of our weakest points, there's a couple of ways you could look at that, I guess. Is it weak in terms of star power? Well, yes. And is it weak in terms of depth? Well, it also has been, yes. I'd say now that whilst we don't particularly have star power centres, Olam certainly is helping that. Definitely quality. I think then underneath that, there's a lot of potential to be quality. We're going to wait and see where the daisies bloom. But I think it's a bit hard to argue we don't have depth in the centres, or at least options, right?
No, it's the biggest depth I can remember in that position for a very long time.
I'll throw straight back to you, but let me just say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players in the top 30 that can play centre. Yeah. Only a third of our top 30 could play centre for us. So, and many of them are specialist centres.
And that's the thing. Like I said, I can't remember us having that much depth in that position. And it's been something I've been quite vocal of the last couple of years, pretty much for as long as this podcast has been on, that's something that we've needed to fix for a while. But yeah, like you said, the star power is definitely better, 100% better, but it's not all the way there. You can't sit there and say that Olam is an out-and-out star. We didn't sit there and pay overs for him and, get this one who's in the prime of his career. But in saying that, he has been centre of the year, which was only 2 years ago. He has that attitude to work hard and get back to that form, which can only leach onto the younger guys. This is the standard I'm setting. If you want to come with me, you got to pick up your act. And I think that's definitely going to help, the likes of Sakura's, like Fatape, all of them. So,
yeah, good influence, no doubt.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Into the halves. We know our halves situation, right? Sullivan and Caesar were both picked as our starting halves. Lockie Galvin, Latu as probably our next cabs off the rank. With Dewey having played halves, he's a specialist half, not due till halfway through the season. Probably doesn't come into contention. I would say they're the only four, right? We're not looking at anybody further.
Not really, but you did say that, Toll has played there before, again, in a pinch.
Yeah.
He could probably be fitting, and same as Bateman, but they're not really in that realm.
No, in an emergency, more of an injury cover on the run than anything. Yep, our hooker situation, quite good, I would say, in our top 30. We've got three that we could throw in and be relatively satisfied, albeit Talon is very inexperienced and very young, but clearly a quality player. We've had Simkin play 80 several times at hooker for us in the past, and obviously we've got the best hooker in the game, in my opinion, Api Coruscant. Just of Harry Grant, another former West Tigers player, might I add.
Debuted for the Tigers, thank you very much.
Mate, geez, we breed good hookers, don't we? Eh?
Jesus, there was no swap deal at all in that one.
No, not at all. I use that word breed very liberally there, extremely liberally. I love you back, Harry. If you're wondering, you can play
He
next
wanted
to
to stay. He wanted to stay. What are we talking about?
Oh, yeah, the Harry chance at Leichhardt or Campbelltown or wherever it was, when they struck up, I might have tempted him. Probably not, but I'd like to think so.
No.
Prop, mate. Good point. Just as many as he would have won with the Tigers.
That's right. And he would have won 2 more silverware for that cabinet if he had stayed. Just bottom end of the ladder.
Hey, mate. Second's the first
silverware.
loser.
Yeah.
All right. Forward pack, so front row, obviously, we've got Pole, Tokamanu, Clemmer, Twal. They're the mainstays, as we well know. We know that we've got Sam Fayuna, who has come in, young fella who can play in the middle. I think they're looking at building up a bit of versatility with him. We've seen Seafarth play in the middle. We know that Papali'i has had a desire, actually, to play in the middle in the past. He's said as much. We haven't actually seen him play in the middle for us, but something that he can do, I guess, at a pinch. But obviously, as one of our first pick players and first pick second rowers, that's not happening anytime soon. If we want to extend that concept of prop into more of a...
You missed the third Fayunu, brother.
I was just about to say that, but no worries. Thanks for crystal ball.
You said extended. He's out and out of prop. That's not really extending it. He should have been in there.
As I was about to say, Toby, I was going to extend the props to encompass the term middle. So we talk about a middle, be inclusive of a lock or that pseudo-lock type of role. Obviously, that lock role is a big spectrum these days, right? You've got your Pole types last year, or you've got your Cameron Murray types in other situations, small player, quick feet. You've got, the likes of Isaiah Yeo, who, big, strong, powerful, but good hands. So it could be anything. So Sione Fainu, I'll throw in there to your point. The other two I was going to throw in were obviously Kit, who I picked as my lock. Justin Matamua, who, to be perfectly honest, is a big unknown quantity. We've heard his name for a while. We've seen bits and pieces of him, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of established games in consecutive Anyway, what am I trying to say? We haven't seen an extended run of Matamua in that position. I haven't seen a whole lot yet, but interesting one to keep an eye on is Justin Matamua. Jordan Miller is top 30. If he plays this year, I will be extremely surprised. I just don't see him developed enough yet. Still a young man, 131 kilos and 192 centimetres. So he's a smidge taller than me. At 19.
He's not chunky either. It's Solid.
Oh no, it's puppy fat, mate. Yeah, he's a former chubber, but he's good player though. But yeah, I don't think ready yet. The other one I'll mention is Chris Fa'anutu. So that's the bloke I keep raving about, formerly referred to as Fa'agutu. Obviously, we've been corrected. So thank
Have
you.
we? I did not know that.
Not officially.
Okay.
I have corrected off the back of hearing him in his interview on Behind the Raw with the West Tigers. So Chris Fa'anutu as well, got big raps on him. So yeah, look, there's a few middles there, but quite a lot of youth in that prop position. Even the likes of Pole, what's Pole, 21 or 20? 20? Fanua Pole is younger than 24. He's either 20 or 21, and I'm going to say 21, and he is
21.
21.
22 this year.
A lot younger than you give him credit for. Not you,
Yeah.
a lot younger than we do because he's been around for a while because he's a gun.
Yeah.
So if you look at Chris Fa'anutu, Kit Lauliti, they're both 18. Sam Fayunu, who's played 5 first-grade games, he's only 19 himself. Even Sione, I think he's only 22, 23, hasn't yet made his debut. So, there's 4 or 5 there. Matamua's played, a small handful of games. Jordan Miller is 18 and he hasn't made his debut, probably won't. Pole's only 21, who I've got starting. So, there's a few options in prop, mate, but in terms of experience, maybe we're skinny, right?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. I think that's definitely something that we're lacking. And I think that's probably the reason why I keep Clem as a starter is just to keep that experience. Like even Steph, you think about, Steph is pretty comfortably the leader of our pack. Clem is there, but Steph's the leader. He's only 20. He's only 23, 24.
Yeah, see, I still see Clemmer as the leader of the pack, but part of the reason I did want to mention, I'm glad you brought that up, is that I want this year to be the year that Steph does take over that role, and by putting him as the key starter, I guess that's what I was trying to achieve a little bit as well. But I take your point. He's a young man himself, 23, 24?
23.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, very interesting. So the only other position, I guess, to look at in depth would be second row. And once again, we've got good starters, mate. We've got our Papali'i and Bateman, who I actually think are both going to have improved years and going to be better again. I don't think it's...
hoping for Ice's sake.
Yeah. But then once you peel back the layers of those two, I personally believe we're a bit skinny. We've got a bit of versatility that can fill in there. But beyond that, we have a few that might need to be repurposed. There's a few youngins or debutants in there. So let's just go through the options there. Seafarth is listed as a prop, but has played on an edge at a pinch. So again, it's versatility that would put him there rather than specialty. I know that there was some talk about Fa'anutu again, possibly retraining and doing a little bit of work on an edge where he could use his skill set a little bit better. But again, debutant, probably a little bit away from first grade. Scroll down, we've got Bateman and Papali'i, obviously. Sam Fayunu can play on an edge, and same deal, 19, looking to try to crack into that space. Tony Sukkar is probably the only other, along with Brandon Toomuth, the only other specialty second rowers. Toomuth having played 1 game from the bench, and Sukkar on a development deal this year, having not made his debut. So same thing again as we find with prop. There is a couple of options there. Kapoa obviously being the other one that can play there and probably will get a bit of time there. But, yeah, not a lot of experience, mate, after behind the front lines.
No, that's, it's interesting. We sit there and we say we've got some depth in the centres. We finally figured that one out. Looks like we're starting to get a bit skinny in the back row. So I guess you can't have it all. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We know how tough, Ice and Bateman are. But if they go down, I think it's going to have to be some makeshifts for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that happens, at certain points in clubs' progressions, that's going to happen. And you can see, obviously, that, we've invested heavily in youth. And I think that, you fast forward 2 or 3 years, we've got pretty good coverage, particularly with, another couple of off seasons of recruiting areas of weakness. But by virtue of the fact that we've got so many young players, you're going to peel back the curtain a little bit on your starters, and you are going to see inexperience. And that just comes with the territory of that sort of approach. And we haven't been in the position, I should say, to be able to bring in a heap of experience for 1 to 2 years in this position, because then we risk taking up spots for some of these players that we see more in the long term, and we don't want to block pathways. It's a tricky situation. So I guess this year we leave ourselves a little bit exposed in that regard, in terms of experience in that second line of defence, particularly in the forward pack, as you said. But I think long term, those things will level themselves out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Very good. Righto, mate. Well, I think we've probably just bent everybody's ears just about enough for this week for episode 2 for 2024, mate. Anything you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think it's probably not a bad idea to, because obviously trials next week, bring back a bold prediction that we do every episode, but maybe because we're talking about the teams, maybe we talk about a bold prediction in terms of Smokies that potentially.
I'll go on for you. Breakout star in 2024.
There you go. So bold prediction for the breakout star. I think that's probably a good one for us.
Who's your breakout star this year? Obviously, last year, Jareen the Dream.
Mm-hmm.
Won it by 20 lengths. Mate, I'll give you the honours.
Mate, I'm going to go with Kit. I think Kit showed more than enough for me in his last game that he's made for NRL, he's made for first grade. I think he's going to be another Pole in terms of just going from strength to strength. So Kit for me.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Have you got a backup? I'll let you have a backup.
You know what? Probably Lob. I think he's my only other one that can really fall into that category. You have a look at those breakout stars there that I've got there, and we have a look at the depth that we have. Can't see a lot of those guys getting a lot of game time to really get situated in that category. So I've got Kit and then Lob as my backup. Yep. What about yourself?
I've got a couple of directions I can go, but I'm going to stay away from our 18-year-old prodigies in Galvin and Latu. I think they'll speak for themselves. They'll get their moments. We'll see a lot of them over the coming years. I think they'll both be superstars. Hopefully we can hang on to them. But I'm going to go with two. I actually think Alamalo is going to hit the ground running.
Okay.
I think he's actually going to demand selection, and he'll get in, and I think he's going to be a presence. I think he'll play on the wing, and I think he's actually going to be hard to leave out halfway through the season. Yeah. I think he's going to really turn out to be one hell of a find. And the other one is not new. I'm going to say Pole is going to finish the season as our premier prop. I actually think he's going to overtake Steph, and I think he's going to force his way into the run-on side. I picked him straight up, but I think he's going to take one of the starting spots by the end of the year. And I actually think he might get spoken about in Origin circles this year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Victorian junior, but I think he's eligible for New South Wales in accordance with a couple of bits and pieces. So, I actually think Pole is going to have a breakout year this year.
I wouldn't say no to that. We're both huge fans of Pole, so
he's got all the tools, mate, doesn't he?
Here's a question, but Alamalo, he's not he is technically a rookie for the NRL, but he's played Super Rugby. Would he still get the rookie honours?
Yes. Will Warbrick was up for Rookie of the Year, and he's played New
7.
Zealand Rugby 7. So
true.
Yeah, and he's 24 or 25, Warbrick. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I guess you make your debut when you make your debut. So
yeah.
I think Taruva is he is younger, isn't he? He's still 19, 20.
Yeah, he's still early 20s, if that.
I mean, Jareem's 22. So
yeah.
We had TDS and Kit and Folletti play at 18, 4 years younger than Jareem last year. Jareem is, I guess, the youngest guy, and he was our rookie that we put forward. So,
yeah,
very interesting, mate. I like that. I'm glad that you kicked off with that concept. Not necessarily bold prediction because it's not for a game, but the breakout star. That's a good one. I like it.
Well, you're the one that manoeuvred it. I just fed you the information, or dropped the seeds for you.
Mate, you did a beautiful job. You pruned up that idea gorgeously. Well done.
Oh, look at you with the analogies.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's the only compliment you get all year, so I hope you enjoy it.
I'll take it.
Eat it up for dessert.
I'll take it.
Mate, if you've got nothing else to say, which is rare, I know, but if you've got nothing else to say, I might jump into PSAs. What I will do is I will say, if you yourselves, ladies and gents, have a breakout star of your own, as well as your 17 throw it on YouTube, throw it on Facebook. Love to hear your comments. Even if you want to sit there and tell me how wrong I am, please do, because I probably am. Let's be perfectly honest. We get on here, we riff, not sometimes, most of the time. That being said, Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, that's where you find us, Tiger Town Podcast. Same name on all platforms. We are working, we've had people touch base on Apple. We mentioned it last week. We are working on getting Apple up and running. Neither of us are on Apple devices, if you exclude my MacBook. So we are doing everything we can because we know we're in the minority and there is a lot of people that use Apple Podcasts. So we're working on getting that up and running, genuinely are. Make sure that if you are on any of those platforms, any of those social media platforms, comment, like, subscribe, whatever they do it all because we love it. Write us a message. Tell us what you enjoyed about the show. Tell us what we can improve because we're just two blokes having a yarn, my friend, aren't we?
Generally goes for over an hour of this yarn, but it's a good yarn.
Absolutely. But room for improvement, we've got it by bucket loads. So give us a bit of feedback. Glorious when we get that, and we're so appreciative. So thank you very much. The other two podcasts we always mention, we always put one of them first because we are in regular communication with those guys over there because they're genuinely good fellas who produce spectacular content. That's, of course, the West Tigers podcast. You'll find them on all your major platforms as well. Jump onto the Ambush as well. They are associated. They are together. That's on the Facebook page. Wonderful community, super supportive of our show as well. The Ambush, Kelly Hollis and Gary Watson are two people that you might want to touch base with and ask if you can jump in on that awesome chat that goes on there on Facebook as well. West Life Podcast is the other one as well, who do quite a good job. Those boys are doing good work behind the scenes, and my understanding is I think they're back next week from what I've heard. So expect your Tigers content to come in thick and fast. I've been yammering on again with PSAs. I've got another one for you, okay? Just another reminder. Thanks again to our show sponsor, Best on Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com. They are the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guys. There's nobody better in the business, nobody more humble. Jump on if you are asking anything marketing-wise. They got you covered, bestongrounddigital.com. Toby, you've had a great show, mate. Well done.
Oh, thank you. What's this? That's two comments. That's two positive comments in one day. You feeling all
I'm
right?
a little drunk.
Yeah. You can tell.
Yeah. So, like I said, that helps.
Yeah.
So, don't get too used to it. My friend, that's it for this episode. I can't wait till next week. Next week, hopefully, ladies and gents, we're going to have a team list, maybe, or maybe a squad list.
Yeah.
We'll have an upcoming trial. We're going to start speculating, bold predictions, the whole bit. It's going to be good stuff.
It's all back.
My friend, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week. Toby Burke, go the mighty West Tigers.
Go the Tigers.